Hello, everyone. Healing Invisible Illness. Today's conversation is about boundaries for empaths. And if you have been getting knocked around, if you've been getting overwhelmed and frazzled and a little bit shut down over the last week or two or three, then this interview is so for you. Because in this interview, we're going to go over the 3 questions you've really got to ask yourself when you're in that place of being completely overwhelmed. And at the end, Terry's going to walk us through a practice that she teaches her students on what we need to do, like the most important thing to do to keep all of that stuff out when we're in the middle of a hurricane. So please stick around. If you have questions, I would love to see them and have you ask them. We actually received a couple before for our Friday trial on this, so we will get to those. And yeah, let's have an awesome conversation here. Terri, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So for our viewers, Terri is someone whose work I've been watching and following for years, and I'm in such admiration of her work. She's a Reiki master, a teacher, a spiritual guide, and an author. Book Confessions of Shower Tapper. She uses EFT. She is an amazing person, and she's creating a community around spiritual development in Birmingham, Alabama. And that is so awesome and powerful. So Terri, thank you for being here. And so let's just dive straight in. One of the first questions that it seems like we have to ask when we're in something like this is, how much more can I take? And so as we look at that and from the position of the empath, how do we even know like what our limits are and when we get to take a break? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So, empaths, it's a big thing going on right now. And this subject of women and out there and divine feminine and all this energy coming forward, that these last few days, few weeks have been really intense. They really have. And so we have to, kind of embrace, where are we in all of this and where is our energy? To me, that's the most important question. Like, okay, is this mine? Am I taking on more? Is this hitting into a deep wound that's coming forward? Or am I just pulling in all these other people's, energy? And so we have to really kind of understand where we are with that. And then once we do that and ask these questions, then we begin to realize, how much do we need to hold on to? Where can I let go of this? And that's the energy that we really have to find ourselves in order to get through, because it can be crippling. It can be really, really hard right now, especially if you have some wounds that aren't being addressed. And I think that's kind of where we can get lost sometimes into it, because if we're not aware of some of those wounds and then we're hearing this information out there, it can unleash a lot in us. It really can, a lot in us. It really can. And then it gets projected out onto others, right? Maybe not into your own self to deal with and heal with. So really asking yourself, like, okay, whose energy is this, and where is my energy, and where's the boundary that I can create for all of this?
Wow.
Definitely.
Yeah. I have been thinking a lot about that line of boundaries, like having the energetic boundaries to actually keep other people's stuff out it's incredibly important. It's fundamental for us empaths. But where we are wounded, boundaries are not enough. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I think that, where we are wounded, boundaries may not be enough, but they need to come into play. Okay. When we are wounded and we're looking through some of this energy within ourselves, it can throw us into a really dark place, especially when we're being abused. We have emotional abuse, physical, sexual, whatever kind of abuse that is wounding us. And I think as a collective consciousness, women share that. We really do share that. So really kind of understanding, okay, I am wounded. All right. I do have some things going on. And the more I listen to what's going on out in the world, the more it enrages me, the more the anger comes forward, the more I really can want to just jump on that energy. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can push us into action, which is a good thing. But other times it can make us just like want to hide and want to just shrivel up because we've had enough. So really figuring out where you are on that scale and what it is doing to your energy is really important. And the thing that I think that we have to do too is really kind of own up to where we are. If we have some injuries and we have some wounds, there's so many tools out there. There really are. And Terri, I say this coming from a place where I've had to do, this year has been a big year for me to learn how to deal with what's going on inside of me. All right. It's right in line with the cosmic energy. It's right in line with everything coming out, all that Scorpio energy coming forward, hitting us in a place where we have to understand what it is that is going on for all of us. And then when we start to uncover it, it's finding those tools that help us really get deep inside so that we can heal from that place. And, you know, I love that you talk about that healing invisible illness, because sometimes this is invisible. Most times it is invisible. Right. I mean, sometimes it manifests in the physical form. For me, it kind of came out through that physical ailment of skin cancer. But when I looked at like, well, what is skin cancer about? And it's about long, slow growing resentment. Okay, so then I peel another layer away. Where's the resentment? What is that about? I need to slow down to figure out where that resentment is. I need to come into finding the tools that are going to help me get to that root, but also the tools that are going to help to replace some of that energy. And I think that's really important, right? So instead of staying in that hurt, like how can we empower ourselves? You know, where can we offer the forgiveness, offer even, this may sound strange to some people, but offer the gratitude for it coming forward, because then we don't stuff it down. We let it open up. We give it the light that it needs, that we can heal.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Again and again, getting to the point of finding gratitude and offering to the illness, to the overwhelm, to whatever it is we're living with, for showing us ourselves, showing us parts of ourselves that we hadn't wanted to meet and take care of.
Yeah. And, you know, it is easier to stuff it down, you know, and I know in that whole cycle that I went through, it was even say, okay, I know what it is, stuff it.
Right.
You know, and we kind of acknowledge it, but then we don't acknowledge it. And then we get riled up when this kind of energy comes out into the mass consciousness, then it pushes us even more. And mostly what happens is we project onto other people. That's where the anger comes from. That's where a lot of that meanness comes from, because we're pushing it out because we haven't completely done the work that we need to do.
Okay.
You know, but when we work in gratitude, I mean, the thing is that even like what happened yesterday, it's like, okay, let's find the gratitude. What is this going to propel us as women to do? Right. Us as empaths to do,
right?
Find the boundaries. And then what's the next action step that we can do? Make sure we go vote. Make sure we stand up for who we are. Make sure that we recognize, okay, this is just like a little stumbling block. Look at what we've done to put this energy out there, right? And I think this is where empaths, I know I'm jumping ahead, but empaths can be really, really helpful in your energy when you know these boundaries, because you can take that collective consciousness and understand it, release the emotions to it, and you're so much more empowered with where you are.
Okay. So would you say, I mean, how do these two things come together, between doing the work of not ignoring and not stepping down your own woundedness and holding your boundaries? How do they go together? Are they things we work on simultaneously? Is there one versus the other that needs to be done first? What is your experience?
Yeah, good question. I do think it is simultaneously. I think we have to work on a lot of parts, but I also I talk about, you know, because I come from a spiritual aspect. So I talk about like, okay, where can we align the spiritual and the physical? So let's talk about some of the things physically we can do in our everyday life. All right, we can listen to one good news source, turn the rest off, right? It's like we don't have to listen to it over and over and over again, day after day after day, right? And there's so much out there going on. There's so many things pushing. I mean, just women's rights itself, and standing up for oneself, and is there truth, and then the Me Too. And so there are all these different facets. So in the physical plane, it's like, okay, turn the TV off, go out for a walk when you've heard it, take away good news, right? We need to be proactive. We need to know what's going on. So don't ignore it, but it's a choice, you know? And I think you and I were speaking beforehand. It's like, okay, yesterday I didn't get caught up in it. Like, okay, I knew this was coming. I could feel it. It's part of the energy coming out in the cosmos. So it's like, okay, how can I use this to a better part of who I am? Like, where can I recognize that that's the better part? So don't get caught up in it. If you're around people that happen to like that kind of energy, I know like my mom's caregiver, she's up there yelling and yelling and yelling at the TV. It's like, okay, we have to then kind of stay away from that energy too, right? And then when you find yourself feeling like all the other people, you have a choice in who you interact with, right? So that's in the physical terms of how do we keep those boundaries. Now in the spiritual terms is as you do your work, as you get into the deeper parts of who you are, and you offer that gratitude, you offer that forgiveness, you're going to find your energy body is going to shift a little bit. So instead of it having a heaviness to the energy body, you can choose to release the emotions. You can choose to let go, kind of witness what I say, pull yourself out of that so that you can be stronger, right? When we have that, I don't want to say weakness, but when we have a weakness in our energy field, does that make sense? When we have too much stuff in our energy field is what I'm trying to say. Too much stuff, it's hard for us to be strong in the boundaries that we have.
Right. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the tendency for empaths, and I'm an empath, it took me forever to find out, but the tendency if we don't know that we're an empath, or we just kind of say, yeah, I know I'm an empath, is that we tend to take it all in.
Right.
Right? And so one of the questions I know we had talked about or mentioned about was empath and highly sensitive. Yeah. Right? So we have a lot of people that are highly sensitive, and then empaths take it to that next step because they have that energetic body. Okay. There's always that part of it, right? Okay. So even highly sensitive people, I think it's highly important that they train to understand what that is about, right? Yeah. And we could actually, we could actually look at like a scale of empaths. So at one extreme, we have the empaths that are highly sensitive. They take on energy. They've got a little bit of that that paranormal energy, right? They can read energy fields and they can take it. We have that. Then we come down a little bit and we have this highly sensitive. They're still taking in energy, but they're not quite taking it in the energetic body, but they're still feeling it. And these tend to get really drained a lot because they don't have the energy skills to release it. Then we come back to like middle of the range, and that's kind of like, okay, I can be empathetic, empathic. I can feel for this person, but they don't really get caught in it, but they're still there. Then we go to the narcissistic, the sociopath, the ones that really take advantage of the empaths, right? They're at the whole totally other end. They have no empathy, right? So where do you fit in on that scale? Right. And I think it's important. I don't know how much we're going to be able to help the narcissistic and the sociopath in that end, but even from the middle line of the empath to the highly sensitive to the real true, psychic empaths or, intuitive empaths, I think that's where we really have to know that we can train the skill, know that we can really work with it. And, I don't want to be a jerk, but, sometimes it could be spiritually lazy not to train these skills. Okay. So does that make sense?
It does. And it also, I did not know any of this until a relatively short time ago. I didn't think of myself as an empath. And I have become a lot more, energetically sensitive as I do this work more. So if you are a person who's just easily overwhelmed, where do you start? Whether you know you're an empath or not, if you're just completely bowled over by all of this, how do you even get started?
I love that question. It really starts with developing a spiritual practice. Okay. That's how I see it. Really starts with sitting with yourself, being quiet, noticing where your energy is. And even in this day and age, there's so many tools out there. There's so many modalities. Learning a modality, learning something that works with your energy on a daily basis, because the best thing you could do is understand what is your energy versus somebody else's energy. Right. And that's really where we start. Even highly sensitive people. It's still important to have an energy modality to really understand, again, how much are you taking in? How much are you projecting out? Because you could be the opposite. You could be emoting all that energy out there too. And then other people are picking up on yours, which kind of falls in that other scale, right? So really, really finding the ability to create a spiritual practice. And it doesn't have to be big and huge and complicated and take hours and hours, right? It doesn't have to be that at all.
What the time that you, right. What does a spiritual practice look like? What is this that you're describing?
So a spiritual practice looks like the ability to have a place where you can just sit, be quiet, you can meditate, you can chant, you can visualize, but something that's going to pull your energy in to you, that connects you to that deeper part that you do on a daily basis. Okay. Daily. Okay. Yeah. And for some of us, it could be several times a day. I'm about to embark on a new nighttime routine. I change my routines up every season, just about. But having that ability, and that's the main key, is coming back to it day after day after day. I was just talking about this. It's not like spirituality is not like you can just go read about it. Right. The actual practice
Okay.
And I'm kind of like you too, Carrie. Growing up, I was always said, "Oh, you're so sensitive. Quit being so sensitive." But it turns out that is actually a gift, right? When we can train into it. Yes.
Right. Right.
So I think empath, spirituality, intuition, energy work, I think they all go together.
Okay. Wow. I want to back up one more second because I just want to be really clear on this about the link between getting caught up and overwhelmed by other people's energies, whether they are the news or something going on in the family, that level of physical overwhelm, and I can't even, like that thing, and a daily practice that I'm assuming what you mean, Terri, is a daily practice that works for you. Like not, don't, don't try to keep doing meditation if it doesn't work for you. Like finding something that actually works for you, and that as an antidote to that just completely being spun out and snapping at the kids and not having any bandwidth and all of that. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, and there's that was a loaded question. Yes, there's a lot in there that you said. Yes, definitely. But one thing I definitely agree that a spiritual practice is what works for you. Okay. Meditation works for everybody. It's just we have judgment on what meditation is, right? Most of us think we got to clear that mind. We got to be in Zen. And I'll tell you, today I was up at the medicine wheel and I spent, I put my timer on. This is part of like lighting and I had so many thoughts. And so when I finished, I found myself saying, well, thank you for that meditation of the busiest amount of thoughts I've had in the last week, So it's not always perfect, right? But having the ability to really get into that deeper part, that's what's key. Okay. And whether you sit quietly, whether you breathe, whether you count your breaths, whether you do pranayama. I'm a big pranayama. I'm a big Kundalini Kriya girl. Those Kundalini Kriyas are amazing. That's really not the importance, but having something that gets you out of the groove, that asks you like, okay, is this my energy? Okay. Is this mine? Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the most important things. No emotion is ever final. Right. So if we're choosing to hold on to emotions, that's our choice. Okay. Right? Okay. Right. And so I've heard you mention a number of times this idea of, is this energy even mine? Is it possible to describe how you know the answer to that? How do you know when you're in that space, whether an energy is yours or someone else's? Yeah. What is it? That's a really good question. And this does take a little practice, but the more that you sit with yourself, journal, whatever your habit is, the more you're going to understand this. Even like, I know for me, it was learning Reiki. All right. I know there's many modalities, but for me, once I learned Reiki and I would run my energy in the morning, I'd feel great. And then get to work and it's like, okay, within 30 minutes, something happened. What was that? Right. So then taking that moment to clear it out. Now, your energy, this is what I teach, and there might be other methods, but your energy is going to be the easiest to start to release out. Then all of a sudden you're noticing, wait, there's other stuff going on. What is this? Okay. So when I, work with my students, it's kind of like, okay, first we release our energy. Then we go in, okay, who else's energy? And then energy follows intention. So we keep releasing it. And then we even add that, like, okay, the mass consciousness energy. Mm-hmm. So we keep releasing it out, and that's going to help us to understand whose it is. Okay. But clearing out those energy centers is really, really important. And that's going to help you understand, am I listening to somebody else? Is this somebody else's opinion? And there are many people, especially empaths, that will come into a group and they'll take on what the group is saying. They'll go to another group. They'll take on the other group. Mm-hmm. So that's where knowing your energy is going to be really important. Right. It really is. And then you're going to be able to clear it. And then you take away the information, right? Right. Rather than all the emotions. Right. Right. Thank you. So starting with a little bit of research, like what just happened? Why am I suddenly feeling wretched? Was it when I opened up Facebook and, read something horrible, or walked past somebody and suddenly felt slimed? Like that kind of thing I find to be really simple. It's like, oh yeah, let's not do that one again. I love this idea that you just put out, that your own energy is easiest to release and others gets to be more complicated. I hadn't ever thought of it that way, but I can see how it could be true. Do you know why? Well, I think that when it's our energy. Again, that idea of no motion is ever final, energy falls in tension, that both of those concepts. But when it's our energy, then we can like choose to release it out. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to totally solve the problem or get us out of that, but we're going to get, okay, so I am feeling insecure about my own energy, and so why is that? And so we start to be able to look at that. But when it's somebody else's energy, they're invisible energy cords that come in, we're holding all this excess energy. And I know as an empath, and one of the things I've learned is that I tend to hold, you know, when we're empathic, we generally take it in through our, you can't see me, through our navel, through our manipura chakra, the third chakra, and a little bit of the heart. But we tend to hold that energy there, and we have trouble digesting our life. So to me, that's one of the clues. Like, okay, is this my life? No, it's not. Then what do I need to do? I need bigger tools, quote unquote, to get rid of some of the excess energy around me. I need other tools, right? And I think that's how we begin to digest some of it, which is mine, which is not. I mean, there's always the exception, you know, when somebody's wound is your wound, it can be animated, especially if you haven't dealt with everything. Right? So it can be a combination, but at least you're starting to process. At least you're starting to, on an energetic level, release. All right. We can think about it all we want and spin the thoughts, but it's really finding those tools energetically, which is what empaths are about. All right. Highly sensitive, it's a little different, but empaths are holding an energetic field of energy. It's coming into their body.
Okay. Okay.
Makes sense?
Empaths, it sounds like it's imperative, sure seems like it to me, to have a practice in which you start really spending time in the energy field, your own, others, the collective, like starting to feel what energy is. And so Reiki is one of those tools. It's one that you love. What are some of the other tools that you find effective?
Yeah, so Reiki I love because it's one that's just so easy and easy to do on yourself. Pranic healing works in the energy fields. There's tools that you can work to pull out. You know, there's all the, we do all this thing and we pull out, and, you know, we have all these things, throw it in a salt bowl, those kind of things. That works in the energetic field, right? There's sound healing that you could do. The sound is going to help balance the chakra system as well as the organs and the systems of the body. There's crystal energy, which helps to raise the vibration. There's angel energy. There's various amounts of different kind of energies. But first and foremost, and I think that one of the things, especially that I teach, that are so helpful for empaths too, beyond the modalities, is the intuition. Because intuition, when you start working with that, you're going to figure out how you process your energy. All right. So there's many ways. I start with the 4 basics. Am I seeing? Am I hearing? Am I feeling? Or am I knowing? Okay. Once you have an idea of how you bring in and put out, but especially take in energy, it's going to help you deal with it more. Okay. Right. So yeah, if you're one that hears, like gets messages audible. So lots of times what happens is, as an empath, you take that energy in through the ears. You hear stuff. And so you're holding it up through here, through the ears. Ears have a vibration, right? We have that different ability to bring it in. So once you start to recognize how you do that, it's easier for you to also then have the hygiene to keep it clean. Okay. So if you know you're getting messages when you're hearing, you need to clear out your ears. You know, there's things I teach that help you open up your ears and clear out all that chatter. Okay. Right? Okay. Yeah, the same thing with seeing, the same thing, especially feeling. Most of your empaths, the number one, what I've noticed from my experience in reading and studying, the number one way that people are empathic is the feeling. Clairessence, clairsentience, right? And so again, that goes back to that third chakra and the heart chakra, and that's where we tend to hold that excess energy is up there, right? So when we know that, we can do more skills to help us, whether it's through, you know, Kundalini Kriyas to tighten up that sensitivity, or whether it's through energetic tools to release it out. Right. That way we can be more and more aware of what our energy is doing. Okay. Okay. And so what I'm hearing is learning how you intuitively get information. Like, what is the channel? And so that helps you become more aware of where your the energy is going to get stuck, like held, where you're going to hang on to it. Having practice to actually get within, get quiet, and start listening to what's happening inside. And then, and then is this mine or is it someone else's? And actually gaining the tools to start
releasing and dumping that stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like, for example, yesterday or when the news was on, like when you were in the room where the news was or listening on the radio, whatever you were, like, where did it hit you? Did you feel sick to your stomach?
Totally in my belly.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's an indication that that's where you're bringing that energy in. Some people may have had headaches, or like their head was pounding, or, you know, like just like the, you know, so that's where we start to notice when we're in the physical environment, where is it hitting us?
Right.
And it is easy just to go, oh, I just, you know, don't know. But when we become more aware, we can break it down better. We really can. Yeah.
And it sounds like it's not an impossible tool to pick up if you're starting from like ground zero on this.
No, it's not. That's what I mean. It's not. We all can learn this. We all can create these. They're muscles. Again, it's the same thing. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. But the more you work with it, the quicker it comes, the more aware of it it becomes. And like anything, when you start to learn, you just have to remind yourself, like when you walk in a room, okay, this is a big room. If I'm not aware of my energy, I can walk in and blow myself out and be exhausted and drained within 5 minutes. But if you pull your energy in, and that's just a technique, pull your energy in, you can sustain it much longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I do. Thank you. That's amazing. There was so much that you delivered in those last like 5 minutes. I'm gonna go create like a highlight reel out of that because it was awesome. Thank you. I
get so passionate. I get so excited.
I know it. I want to look at this idea of knowing our limits as an empath, as like you said, even you studying this, teaching this, doing this work, if you're not prepared and if you haven't done the work beforehand, you can get blown out. I've experienced that myself. So how do we, as empaths and powerful people, accept and kind of deal with the fact that there are situations that we have to be extra prepared around? Like, I have limits, and I don't know about you, but I think people are getting more sensitive than they used to be. Do you think this is true, or is this just the people I'm meeting?
It's kind of I think people are becoming more aware. I will definitely say that. More aware and more mindful. Mindful is such a buzzword. It's hard for me to really answer that because you know how we get into our own groups, like you just said.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the idea of, I mean, like even, you know, your mainstream authors are talking about energy vampires and energy work and, you know, things like that. So there has to be something to that. If they're talking about it, you know, it's not just Dr. Judy Orloff talking about it, but Dr. Christian Northrup is talking about it. You know, we got these mainstream people talking about empaths and sensitivity. So there has to be something to that.
Right. Okay. And so it's something that we don't really have tools for it. So how do we start understanding that there are actually things we don't want to do? There's limits on how much our bodies can handle and can take in. Do you have ideas on that?
Well, I think it's knowing your energy. And again, that comes through an energy practice. But I mean, I think we all have this innate ability to understand this. It's a matter of whether we choose or not choose. You know, I think that's part of it. But I mean, if you find that you're super drained and you're super tired and it doesn't make sense, then there's got to be a little bit deeper to go. I mean, that's kind of on the, you know, on the surface level of all of us working out there is that where are we in this? And there's so many levels. I kid you not. There's just so many levels to what's going on right now. I mean, we can look at it in the, you know, well, now it's the Aquarian age and we've got to, you know, deconstruct the Piscean age. There's all of that energy. Oh, the divine feminine is rising. So we have to work with that. Well, do we think it was going to get easy? It's like, no, it's not. Look at what we've been through. Yeah. You know, I think I mentioned to you that I've been doing a lot of Akashic readings, and so much of that thread of being burned at the stake or not at your time and doing, you know, having that health, you know, like that plant knowledge and stuff, like, okay, this is what is resurfacing, right? So I think part of that has to be looked at too. And guess what? I forgot where my point was. What was the question?
Just understanding that there's a lot going on and that we do as empaths have a limit to how much we can take before we blow out. before
Yeah.
we get short.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for pulling me back around. So I think with that question in mind, it's like, yes, having the tools, really having the tools, and they can be 5 minutes, they can be 20 minutes, they can be an hour. It just depends on where you are in your life and what it allows you to do. But if you know something's coming up for you, if you know you're going to be around a lot of people, having those tools come with you. When you walk into a room, you know, it's kind of like zipping up, you know, or put the bubble around, pull your aura in. That's a big one. And if you mean like, what do you mean? But it's like feeling the edges of your aura, and that's a practice. That is simply a practice that we use, you know, and it goes beyond just saying, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to step on that line. I'm not going to step that close to that person. It's that same idea, right? I mean, you could try this too. If you go step up to somebody and feel like, ooh, this feels yucky. Yeah. Believe it or not, that's an energy boundary. Right? You may not realize it, you may just think it, but that's how we do it. And in the same token, you could still be, you know, in your own world and have people around there, but pulling your energy in so that you are protected is really important. Right. Right. And that's one of the, to me, the easiest ways of doing is pulling our energy in and feeling like, okay, I can protect myself. Some of us have to put bubbles around us, right? I mean, there's very different layers of energy fields that we work with. So finding the one that works for you. And then also too, it's like when you leave a place that you've been exposed to all this energy, it's like, take a moment, leave the energy there, you know? And I know when I first started this work, it's like, I have to physically push it. Okay, I'm done. This is it. Goodbye. Done. You know, done. And then step out. Yes. Otherwise, the tendency is to pull all this energy with you. Take it with you. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I can totally remember that as I was developing my own sensitivity. I would have to do that anytime I walked into a crowd. And when I didn't, I felt crappy for quite a while afterward. Just feel unsettled. And for me, it was nausea because it always sort of hits at my belly. I'm definitely a kinesthetic. Yeah. And that leads directly into the questions that I wanted to ask next, which are, what are some really like tangible as possible ways that we can start assessing where our energy field is? I have worked with clients there's like no edge to their energy field. It doesn't have like an edge on the end of it. It sort of filters out forever. So how do we start getting a sense of where our energy field is?
So one of the ones that I teach, and this goes into many levels, but the first one I think to start with, and I always think of Beauty and the Beast when I talk about this, but is to imagine you have a mirror, like arm's length. Anybody ever watch Beauty and the Beast when they had that magical mirror? Right? So you imagine you have a mirror and you send the mirror around you about arm's length. And that's the first level of energy for you to get really familiar with. Pull your energy to that. So you imagine, right? You have this mirror, and I like to do like a little trail of rose quartz around me. And so if you can imagine your arm's length all the way around, then you could start to pull your breath in. Pull your energy field in using your breath, all right? It's one, you have to know your breath. Two, then that helps you to know your energy, right? Many of us think of our breath only going up and down, but we go out as well with our auric field. And then that's how we start to go around with us, right? And then for empaths, pull it in tight, like all the way tight, like really tight around. Yeah. And then with empaths, I always teach to an amethyst border. Amethyst will help you not take in the energy. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that stones and crystals have never been very intuitive for me to work with. And so when I was starting my own boundary practice, I was working with like the idea of it being cast iron. I had one lovely friend who was kind of a dumper, and I had to imagine there was just this cast iron boundary around the edge of my field that just wouldn't let any crap in. And so for me, it was things like cast iron and titanium and just like real
I love it.
Stuff. Yeah, because I couldn't connect to, I hadn't done enough work with stones. I couldn't connect to the idea of stones. And so it was, here's like wood and these things that I thought I could understand better. But for me, that was extremely helpful. It was like, I am finally held and contained in a space that doesn't just drip out and absorb everything around me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, whether it's titanium or stones, actually, I started with my teacher with like a mirror to bounce it back. So it was like a mirror to push it back. So it, you know, that's just the visualization. And that's where I say spirit loves amusement, whatever works for you. But it's the same idea of using that visualization, using that imaging faculty that is our part of our intuition to help us do that. And to me, because I have a little bit of trouble in the physical world sometimes, this was the way I learned to set boundaries.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I love the difference here between the two of us, because what we found started us down this, and it's what worked. And to me, it's find a practice that works for you. If you're trying to do something that somebody else has told you works and you can't grab it. I watched a ton of Donna Eden videos 10 years ago when I was trying to figure all this stuff out, and I could never connect to her work. I just couldn't get there. But when I started following my own intuition and I started grabbing at the idea of cast iron, because it's a thing I understand, then it started to work for me, and I started to get more contained and more held and less overwhelmable, I guess.
And I totally agree. I mean, and I think that's what it's got to be. It's got to be something that relates to you. Yeah, no matter how beautiful crystals are, if that's not working, that's not going to help. So again, having your own little journal or guidebook, right? Write down your notes, like what does work. And then when you find you're going to be in this kind of situation, you go back to that. Yeah. Right. I think that becomes really important. Definitely.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going back to my notes from some of our earlier conversations, and there is, since you mentioned Dr. Christiane Northrup and this idea of the sort of the continuum of energy sharing, shall we say, from empath to narcissist and beyond, let's talk about energy vampires. How real are they? And when we are with someone who's close to us, who is an energy vampire, what do we do?
Yeah, it's a big topic. I think they're very real. I've been around enough myself to know that. And I also know too that it's up to us whether we want to play into it or not. Right. You know, when you, and I guess part of that too is lots of times there are people that, you know, like to help a lot and they feel important when they help a lot and they're going to be sucked out. And so if that's who you are and that's what you want, recognizing that. Right. But when you're super drained and you have those people that are constantly calling you and dumping on you, they're feeling better and you're going, what happened? Right. Then something needs to shift. And so that's where some of the choices, you know, strategically come in. Don't have that phone call first thing in the morning, right? Don't have that conversation with someone because you feel like you need to, or you have to, or you're supposed to, right? You can create those boundaries there too, right? And then on the other hand, if you are one that does a lot of work in this and you are that kind of person, then having the tools when you finish that conversation to dump that energy somewhere, whether it's in a crystal, whether it's in a saltwater bowl, whatever it is. But this is real. I know we don't see it. And again, people go, oh, that's just woo. But this is real. Energy forms are real. Right. You know? Right. And so with Dr. Christina Northrup, she really gets in to say that, you know, there's a lot of this going on. And she was finding, you know, people that were very healthy in other respects and doing the nutrition, they were still being drained of energy. And it was from this empathic nature where they're in relationships with, whether it's a narcissistic person or whether it's just somebody that likes to complain and dump. I mean, there are different levels there too. But this is where we have to become more responsible for our energy and recognize that it does happen. You know, and I think one of the easiest ways to recognize this is like at the office, at the workplace. Okay. You come in, you're nice, you're fresh, you feel good. And then who in your office is the one that comes in and dumps on you? Right. Are you allowing it, or is that always happening? Are you not aware? And these are the questions you start to ask. Right. But I have seen these tools like pull your energy in, wear some amethyst, right? Put some, and then when somebody comes in, it's like put your hands across your chest. And what happens is you're not receiving the energy. They don't get the same satisfaction. They're going to go find somebody else. Yeah. Right. So lots of times in the physical form, what will happen is then you feel less important. Oh, they're not coming to me anymore. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. And so that's where we have to know our limitations and just be very conscious and aware that this is a bargain I'm making with myself. If I'm going to be in contact with this person who dumps on me and makes me feel terrible, then I'm going to have to develop the skills to do something about it and not
as I think Krista, one of the commenters on our post earlier, was saying, not just kind of be that slightly victimized empath of, I just get overwhelmed by everything and then there's nothing I can do about it. There are things that we can learn to do.
There are things that we can learn to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that takes us to one of, I think, the most beautiful questions that I've wanted to discuss with you, which is, can we turn this, and how can we turn this thing that before we develop it feels like a curse, this curse of the empath, how do we turn that into a gift?
Yeah. So that, great question. That has to do with kind of what we've been saying, is developing that spiritual practice. Know your intuition. Pick up skills and tools that are going to really help you to really be stronger in this energy and not weaker. And that also, you can look at in vibration. I mean, it's like to be stronger and more empowered. It's kind of like we were saying, like when you feel the information, maybe you're in like a business meeting in the morning and this one feels a little bit like he's depressed and upset, rather than thinking like he doesn't like your idea or something, like, oh no, that's his energy. This one's got health energies going on. It's not me that's projecting wrong. When we have that knowledge and information, there's so much more we can do rather than just take on the energy and feel like it's us.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the example.
So the more that we train it, the more that we're going to have more knowledge, more information, and we're going to find our energy is at a greater capacity.
Right.
Rather than being drained.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Would you share with us a little bit how your life has changed and how you feel the gift has been a gift for you once you developed it and embraced it?
Yeah. Where shall I start? No, I'm just teasing.
It's your life. I know this.
My whole life. No, I think the biggest shift and recognition and mindfulness, really came back in the late 90s when I went through this major divorce. And I never realized that I was married to a narcissistic man. I was hugely empathic, had no idea, and just struggled so much to the point of really losing everything about me, my voice, who I was, my identity, everything, until it crashed. Wow. And then that's when that whole dark night of the soul comes up, which actually we can have more than one. But that's when, like, who am I? Like, who am I listening to? Like, where is my spirit? And once I began to really tune into that and met a spiritual teacher and started to sit with myself and started to find out I could learn some of these skills, that's where my greatest gift began. Because I began to own a part of me that was really hugely important. And then I found out, oh, I do have some gifts. Oh, I do have a heart for this kind of work. Oh, I do have an idea of where this energy is coming from now. And then that's when I began to train it more and more and more, and to the point of where I do this full time now, helping others. And that's a big passion of mine. I don't want people to go through what I went through. I don't want people to feel like they haven't a say in their relationship or in their marriage or in their life, right? Whether it's at work or home, wherever it is. We can find these skills. We really can. And it's just a matter of working deep within our spirit and training those muscles that we can have these tools. And now I see it. Like, I do have a voice. I do know what my emotions are. I can tell when I've taken in energy that's not mine. Yeah. And I think for myself, just to be able to open up to that and really, really own it instead of hearing, quit being so sensitive.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Because it's no small commitment, honestly, to do this work, to find your own energy and to start learning tools to manage it. It's a commitment, and it's so worth it. This is part of who we are. It's part of the way we were made, we empaths, and not doing something about all of it leaves us susceptible to energy vampires, narcissists, and being knocked sideways every single time something happens in our world. And so while it is a commitment, it does require changing sometimes a lot about the way we see the world and the way we see ourselves. What it gives us is, like you said, we own a part of ourselves. We own a greater power within. And what I find is the world is so much more interesting and life is so much more vital when this aspect of the self is owned. And I've seen it in myself and in a lot of my clients as well. So yes, it's a hurdle. Yes, it's a chunk of work, but it is so, so worth it to do. And once you've kind of got over that initial hump, it actually becomes an obsession, right? It becomes fascinating how much more you can do when you own this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I also see it as like a depth.
Yeah.
Because we're on the surface and then we go a little deeper and deeper and deeper into our soul. We have this much more depth to our life and it's much more enriching, I find. And then there's the fun part, spiritless amusement. It's like all that synchronicity that happens in your life and the understanding. It's like little locks get unlocked. Like one thing can turn to another, to another, to another. It's like pretty amazing. It really is. And then when the healing occurs, I mean, healing is a big word, but I know for me, what I went through, it's huge. It's huge what can happen to the body and the mind and the spirit to take back energy, to heal from a place of wound, to heal to that next level, and then go on to make the shifts in your life. It is really huge. And no, it's not the easiest work, but I find it can be some of the most rewarding when we work with that soul energy. Yeah. When we work with what we have come into this lifetime to do. And I know not everybody goes to that point, but it's like working in those imprints, working on what are we repeating? What is our lessons? I mean, this is where the depth of our soul comes from and the work that we're here to do. What matters in the end, really? You know, I mean, that's how I see it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love your perspective. And this is one of the reasons that I've been admiring you for so long and wanting to have a conversation with you. And I appreciate so much that this conversation has not revolved around zipping up and shields up and all of that work that is useful and it is important and it's real, but it's not the biggest part of protecting the empath. I believe, and I think I've heard you say the bigger part of protecting the empath is knowing ourselves, knowing your own energy and knowing how to get rid of the crap that we've taken on.
I think if we just zip up, it's kind of like stuffing it down, you know, and I don't. So I appreciate you saying that because I think that we have to filter. We have to be in the world. We have to, because if we just take our energy and go off, we're not going to do, who we're going to do good, right? And right now, it's important that the empaths come out, just as it is for the women. It's like we have to open up to this energy and be strong in it. It's very powerful. It really is. So take the woo out. I've been talking about spiritual literacy for a while now. That's been like my big topic now because it kind of grounds us. What is that about? It's like, let's learn about it. Let's talk about it. Let's read about it and let's practice about it. Right. You know, and I think that takes some of that woo out so that us as empaths, we can be out there and we can have a heart and we can open up.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. We don't have to live in a cave. When we have these tools, we don't have to live in a cave anymore. Oh, yes. And oh, God, I love it. Yes. Thank you.
I do too.
As we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or throw out there about this whole topic?
I just think that right now, with everything going on, knowing your energy is really key. Finding that energetic practice, especially for empaths, right? I mean, even highly sensitive people can find that energetic ability to get into your energy system. Build those tools. It's a muscle. Know about your intuition. Those are going to be the things that are going to guide you to create those boundaries. And then where are you in your energy? Is it yours? Is it somebody else's? To me, those are all the most important things. And this is a really great gift that we have, especially as women. Men can be it too, but I'm talking to another woman. But it really is. It's like a great gift. So let's turn it around to make it what it is and be highly empowered through our spirit, through our work, through what we're doing so that we can make these shifts, so that we don't have to have women suffer the way that we all experienced watching it this week. I mean, like, come on. We don't need this anymore. We don't. Right. We really don't. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I've absolutely
that answered your question. I guess so. Yeah.
I know. I love it. I know you want to leave our viewers with a special gift. Can you describe what you've got for us?
Yes, right now on my website, I actually have a guide for building a spiritual practice.
Awesome.
For 5 simple steps to setting up your spiritual practice. So if you go to my website, terriannheiman.com, you can download that guide and it will walk you through the steps to setting up that practice for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. I will drop the link below
Thank
for
you.
that so people can grab it. Viewers, thank you so much. Victoria Teague, I see that you're still on. Thank you for being here, everyone who's been here. I would love to continue this conversation below or on my website. I will post it there as well. Let's continue having this conversation. It is so important that we develop these skills and we empower ourselves so that we don't end up getting knocked around and not being able to contribute to the world in the way that we as empaths really, really can when we're empowered. So let's keep the conversation going below. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you on our next interview. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. To your spirit.